What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Talkin Sports with Jake. We're doing a little sports talk today. Of course, we have our game picks for both college football and for the NFL Week 2. But first, let's talk some baseball. Let's go over the standings. After third straight day I'm doing this show, so standings from day to day in baseball don't change too drastically. Still a 3-game lead for the Cleveland Guardians in American League Central. They've won 5 in a row. They're now 10 games over 500. White Sox 3 games back. Twins are 5 games back. New York Yankees are now 6 games up on Toronto. Toronto jumps ahead of Tampa for second place in the American League East. Toronto is 6 games behind the Yankees. Tampa 6.5 Yankees playing a little better now. Have won 7 the last time, so they are playing some decent baseball. Since the All-Star break, they really struggled, but right now they are playing pretty well. About a week ago, their division lead had shrunk to about 4.5 games. It's now back up to 6. Of course, at one point it was 17 games, but do lead by 6 games in the middle of September, which is a solid lead. So we'll see where that goes. American League West, Houston Nationals lead Seattle by 12.5 games. They are running away with that over there. Should be clinching, I think, in the next couple of weeks. National League Central, Cardinals lead the Brewers by 7 games in the National League Central. Mets took another loss last night. Atlanta won, so the Mets leads back down to a half game over Atlanta in the National League East. My Mets got to pick it up. They've gone 5-5 in the last 10 games. In the last 10 games against the Nationals, the Pirates, the Marlins, and the Cubs. That's not good enough. They've lost their first 2 games against the Cubs. They've scored 2 runs. They've scored 3 runs in the last 2 games. Their offense, outside of a couple of games, probably 3 games where they had a couple of offensive explosions, 3 or 4 games for this 10-game stretch, their offense has overall struggled against the worst teams of baseball. Entering September, we had the easiest schedule maybe in the league. We had all these crappy teams. We had 6 or 7 games against Washington. We had 6 coming up or 7 against Pittsburgh and Miami. We had a set of 3 against Chicago. Outside of the Milwaukee Brewers, who are probably not going to make the playoffs, and then the Braves at the very end of September into October, the second to last series of the year. Those are the only teams even over 500. The Braves obviously a great team. They're the only really good team we played. Milwaukee's team we should definitely be able to handle. They're, like I said, are on the outside looking in right now of the playoff picture. Everyone else is a bottom feeder, and right now they're up and down right now. So hopefully they can get themselves together, because the Braves schedule a little bit harder. They just came up a series with Seattle. They still have some games left with the Phillies, who they are better than, but the Phillies are a decent team. They're probably going to the playoffs as a wild card in the National League. Outside of that, the Braves don't have too much competition, of course, outside of the Mets with their schedule. National League West, the Los Angeles Dodgers have officially clinched the National League West. It's September 14th. That's crazy. 98-43. Wow. That is incredible. They're on pace for around 110 or 112 wins or something like that. That's crazy. The record's 114. That 2001 Mariners, they had 114 wins in 2001. Seattle Mariners. That's the record for most regular season wins in a season in MLB history. I doubt the Dodgers will get there. You never know. It's the Dodgers. They got 21 games left. They would need to go 16-5 to tie it. That's some runs. They're probably going to come up a little short, especially since they're probably, at this point, since they already clinched the division, and they are about 9 games clear of the number 1 seed in the National League. And the number 1 team in the American League right now is Houston, who are also 6 games clear. So they're about 6 games clear of having home field advantage throughout the entire postseason, and they only have 21 games to go. At this point, if I were them, I would start preparing for the postseason. You can start maybe building in some off dates for some of your guys, make sure they're healthy for the postseason. Start preparing for the playoffs. Maybe start going to your playoff format rotation. Start using guys in different scenarios. If you have any top prospects you want to get a look at, maybe give them a look, maybe. So they probably won't get to 114, but I could see them getting to 110 or 112. They are an incredible baseball team. As for the wild card race, the Toronto Blue Jays have full position of the first wild card in the American League. They're a half game ahead of Toronto and Seattle, who are tied for that last spot. Those will probably be the 3 teams. Baltimore Orioles are 5 games back. National wild card, I'll say Atlanta is the first wild card right now. Then you have the second wild card is the Philadelphia Phillies. They are a game and a half up for that second spot. And the last spot from the National League is the San Diego Padres. And then the Milwaukee Brewers are 2 games out. I want to go over some rule changes in baseball that will be enforced next year. I'm going to give everyone my thoughts on those. There was talk they were expected to be put in next year when they got out of the lockout earlier this offseason, prior to the season starting, of course. And they've been finalized. There is going to be a pitch clock inserted into the game next year. There will be a pitch clock. It will be 15 seconds when there is no runners on base, and when there is runners on base, it will be 20 seconds. So it means the pitcher must throw a pitch. When there's no one on base, they have 15 seconds by the time they get to the rubber to throw a pitch, and when there's guys on base, they have 20 seconds to throw a pitch. They can only do 2 pickoff moves per plate appearance. I believe if they go over that limit, it will be a balk. And if they take more than 15 or 20 seconds, depending if there's guys on base or not, I believe it's an automatic ball. My thoughts on this: I don't mind the pitch clock. It's been tried out in the minor leagues this year, and on average, the games were 26 minutes shorter. So it appears it will shorten the games. I'm not huge on trying to make the games shorter. I just want the game. They should just let the game play as it is. That being said, I'm also a diehard baseball fan, diehard Mets fan, diehard baseball fan. It's the casual baseball fans that don't want to watch a game that's pretty much always guaranteed to be at least 3 hours. A 9-inning game is going at least 3 hours. So if they're able to take possibly 20 minutes off a game. So now the game's only being about 2 hours and 40 minutes, close to 2.5 hours, and it's not interrupting the flow of the game, then I think that's a very much an okay provision to put in. I don't like that you're limiting their pickoff attempts per at bat. I think that's dumb. I don't agree with that. And also, they're saying if the pitch clock runs out, it'll be a ball. I don't think it should be an automatic ball. I think at the very least you should get a warning at least first, especially since this rule is going to be new next year. And if you exceed the pickoff limit, it's a balk. I think you should at least get a warning at first. I know this is not Little League, but this is the first year putting in this rule. I don't think it should be an automatic balk. But I don't mind that there's a pitch clock. The experiment in the minors definitely showed that it does work. But I think it's a little harsh. I would have probably give the pitcher a little more time, maybe something like 18 seconds with no guys on base, maybe 23 or 25 seconds with guys on base. I would have probably done 20 seconds with no guys on base, 25 seconds with guys on base. 15, 20, I think it's a little short, but I don't mind there being a pitch clock or just the other stuff. The specific times what the pitch clock is, and the limits on the pickoff moves, and the penalties for going over the pitch clock and exceeding your pickoff limit per plate appearance, I do not agree with. As for the larger bases, I could care less. They want to, increase the safety for the players so that, when they slide into the bases, it'll lead to less, injuries if you jam your finger and you can break your fingers that way. I know they tried it in the minor for larger bases and it led to more stolen base attempts and a higher stolen base success rate. Stolen bases have kind of almost disappeared from the game, so this leads to more stolen bases because guys feel more confident because they got a little bit more base to work with that can make the game more exciting, which is something MLB lacks. Which is why they're putting in all these provisions trying to speed up the game. Over the last few years, they've limited the amount of man-bids that you can have, and now they're next year putting in the pitch clock. They're going to limit the pickoff attempts per plate appearance. So those can possibly mess up the game. It really hasn't so far, but we'll see what happens down the road. But larger bases keeps the player safe and possibly some more stolen base attempts, which is good, which I believe is good for the game. I don't mind that. Now to the big one, the shift. The shift is going to be limited. there's been, for years, there's been discussions about should they ban the shift. You got guys who are dead pull hitters, a guy like Joey Gallo, who's always, a left-handed pull hitter. He's hitting what, if there was no shift, would be a lot of times a clean single to right field. But instead, the second baseman, instead of playing his normal position in between first base and second base, he's playing on the outfield grass, and it's right to him. They said you must have 4 infielders on the infield. They must all be on the infield dirt. There must be 2 on each side of second base. So you have to have 2 guys on the right side of second base, 2 guys on the left side of second base, and they all must be touching the dirt, so they can kind of shift a little bit. So, the third baseman can't, go to, the other side of second base, like I do sometime, but if he wants to move over close, all the way over to the short side, you want to put the shortstop, maybe, right next to second base or something like that. You can do that, but you cannot put the third. You have to have 2 guys on each side of the base, so you really can't put a third fielder, a third infielder on the right side. Can't put the second baseman in the outfield. But that's what's going to happen next year. I understand why a lot of people don't like it. They're saying, guys need to learn to hit the ball the other way. And I've heard people say, imagine if the NFL banned, not being able to play, the 3 deep safety because some quarterbacks didn't have a good enough arm to throw that far. I understand, but I just think the shift is bad for the game. Although I may sound hypocritical, although I do not like, like Joey Gallo, complaining about the shift. I do agree. Yeah, all right. Just hit the ball the other way, dude. If you hit the ball, in the gap for a double or hit a home run, the shift shouldn't matter. If you get it even into the shallow to middle of the outfield, that could get you out of the infield. First of all, you got these guys who have 2 or 3 stolen bases a year at most, laying down bunts down the third base line and getting and when they get to first base, are literally taking a turn and thinking about going for a double because there's no one on the left side of the infield. That's just I don't think that's good for the game. A catcher who's been in the league for 10 years and has 2 career stolen bases should not be able to bunt the ball right to the third baseman and almost get a double out of it. Several years ago, it's probably 5 years ago, when Michael Conforto was still on the Mets, he had a pop up to third base. It was a can of corn pop up, but because they had the shift on it before, there was no one on the left side of the infield. It fell right next to the third base bag, and he ended up with a hit out of it. I remember Gary Cohen, the Mets main play-by-play announcer, said, or it was him. I'm sure it was him, or it was Keith Hernandez, or if it was Ron Darling. They said, all right. They said something like they should ban the shift. It should be the Michael Conforto based off that play. And honestly, I agree. If a can of corn pop up to the third baseman should not be a double because there's no one on the left side of the infield. So I don't mind them banning the shift. And also, there's some pitchers who actually don't like the shift. I've seen times where the shift is on and a guy just happens to to get one of those lucky hits and pitches inside to a left-hand batter, but they end up going the other way with it somehow. They kind of the way it hits the bat, but it looks like an easy pop because there was no one there. They ended up getting a hit and maybe even a double out of it because there was no one on the left side of the infield. I just don't think it's good for the game. So I don't mind the banging the shift, and going back to some pitchers don't like a lot of times when that happens, pitchers get angry. One time a couple of years ago, Jacob DeGrom was facing the St. Louis Cardinals when the Cardinals had Matt Carpenter, and the Mets had a shift on Carpenter, and Carpenter hit an easy ground ball by third baseman because they had the shift on. There was no one on the left side of the infield. It got through, and DeGrom was livid. He was livid on the mound, he was screaming, walking in the dugout. He was screaming. A few years ago, Rich Hale was still on the Dodgers. A guy who got a little infield single, which would have been an easy ground out, and he was pissed. He was screaming, he was cursing. As he was walking off the mound, he said the whole effing left side is effing wide open. Some pitchers have come out and said, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a fan of shift, so There are some actual pitchers who actually don't even like the shift. Honestly, we know the haters don't like it. Guys like Joe Miguel, these dead pull hitters who it's like a unfair band, which I don't really agree with. But there's even some pitchers who say, I don't really like the shift. I mean, Francisco Lindor, my shortstop, said he doesn't really like the shift. He kind of said, I wish they would kind of let me make the play. Kind of said something like, let me make an incredible diving, sprawling, SportsCenter top 10 reel stop. Don't, put me on the other side of the infield and hope that, they hit the ball to me. Let me make the play. Don't, put me where you think they're going to hit it. Put me at short, at the regular position, and let me try and make a great play. So I don't mind. I definitely see the other side as to why the shift should not be banned. But I don't mind it. I'm not a fan of the shift. I think it's kind of dumb. Yes, I know people are saying, you're basically telling the fielders telling the fielders you can't stand in a certain place on the field. But like the third baseman, he plays third base. He should not be on the right side of second base. I don't know how that is good for the game, how it makes sense, how that is anything that is relevant to the game at all. You shouldn't have the shortstop playing almost behind second base. That's not where a shortstop plays. It's called third base. You play near third base, not near second base. That's my spiel about MLB and the upcoming rule changes next year. As for football, let's get into some football. First, we'll do some game picks for college football. We're going to do the top 25 teams that are playing. We got Georgia, who's now ranked first in the country. They play South Carolina. Georgia should roll on that one. They have been dominant. They should continue to roll. 4th seed Michigan against unranked UConn. I'm not going to lie. I did not know UConn had a football team. Their basketball teams are great, especially the women's basketball team, but their football team is yikes. Michigan should roll over them. 6th seed Oklahoma against unseeded Nebraska. Nebraska is horrible. They just fired their head coach, Scott Frost. Oklahoma should roll over them. 9th seed Kentucky against Youngstown State. Kentucky looks really good. They should win that one, no problem. 17th seed Baylor against Texas State. I think Baylor bounces back. This is a good one. 3:30 on Fox. We got 12 seed BYU against 25 seed Oregon. That's a really good game. BYU's look good. They got a big win in overtime over Baylor, who's one of the top teams in the Big 12 year after year after year, and Baylor came in a top 10 team. Oregon came into the year the best team in the Pac-12. Right now it looks like it's USC, but Oregon came into the year as the top Pac-12 team. I'm actually going to take BYU. I can see Oregon getting an upset, but I'll take BYU. I like the way BYU is playing. Oregon seems to struggle against tough competition at times, so I'll take BYU. 20 seed Ole Miss against Georgia Tech. I'll take Ole Miss in that game. 22 seed Penn State against Auburn. This Auburn team is not the same. The last couple of years, the end of Gus Malzahn's tenure, and now since he left, they have not been the same team that was in the national championship a bunch of years ago against Florida State, and has been a team that's been able to compete, even beat Alabama in the Iron Bowl at times. So I'll take Penn State in this one. Alabama's ranked second in the country against ULL Monroe. Alabama's probably going to get their typical 58-10 win or something like that. 19 Wake Forest against Liberty. I'll take Wake Forest. 3 seed Ohio State against Toledo. Ohio State's going to roll in that one. 8 seed Oklahoma State against Arkansas. Pine Bluff. I have never heard of them. OK State should roll. 10 seed Arkansas against Missouri State. Arkansas should win no problem. 15 seed Tennessee against unranked Akron. Tennessee shouldn't have any trouble in that game. 16 seed North Carolina State against Texas Tech, who is unranked but has looked good. But NC also won 55-3 last week. Was not a good team they play, but still 55-3. I'll take NC State. 11 seed Michigan State against Washington. I'll take MSU. They've looked good. 18 seed Florida against South Florida. A rivalry game. I'll take the Gators in that one. 23 seed Pittsburgh against Western Michigan. I'll take Pittsburgh in that one. 5 seed Clemson against Louisiana Tech. Clemson should roll. 21 seed Texas against UTSA. I'll take Texas. This is a good one. 13 seed Miami against 24 seed Texas A&M on ESPN. I'm going to take Miami. Texas A&M lost to Appalachian State. I still can't believe they lost to Appalachian State. Miami's looked really good. They look like a different team that's really struggled the last few years. The glory days of the U are long gone. But with Mario Cristobal as the head coach, they've looked really good. They're ranked 13th in the country. Texas A&M just plummeted all the way to 24th. I'll take Miami in that one. 14th seed Utah against San Diego State. Utah should win no problem. And 7th seed USC against Fresno State. I think USC continues their hot start to the year, and they pick up a win there. With my college football picks. Now let's get into the NFL Week 2 picks. Tomorrow night is Thursday Night Football. The Chargers and the Chiefs AFC West battle. I would say the top two teams in the AFC West for sure. This game will be on Amazon Prime. Remember, Amazon's got a few Thursday Night Football games this year with Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit now doing the games. I'm going to actually take the Chiefs. It's at Arrowhead. Chiefs tend to be very good at home. Chargers probably going to be getting their top receiver in Keenan Allen. Chargers still have a great team. And they did look pretty good last week, but the Chiefs were freaking dominant. Without Tyreek Hill, no problem. Mahomes had over 360 yards and 5 scores against Arizona. They put up 44 points. Their pass rush looked reborn. I'll take the Chiefs in this one. Panthers at the Giants. I'm going to take, at 1 o'clock, Giants home opener. Facing Carolina. Giants picked up a win. They squeaked by Tennessee in week 1. Carolina, of course, lost a heartbreaker to Cleveland on a late long field goal from Browns kicker Cade York. You know what? I'm not a Giants fan, but I'm going to take the Giants. They got to be confident that Brian Daboll's got the play calls. Saquon Barkley coming off a big game. Baker Mayfield struggled in week 1. I'll take the Giants, actually. New England at the Steelers. Steelers picked up an overtime win over Cincinnati in that crazy game. New England lost. I'm actually going to take the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know they're without TJ Watt, but I did not like what I saw from the New England Patriots. Now Mac Jones might be battling a back injury. I did not like what I saw from New England. I'll take Pittsburgh in this one. Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New Orleans Saints. Should be a real good game, but I'm going to take the Bucs. Although I do think the Saints always dominate the Buccaneers. I think the Bucs actually do get a win in this one. I do not like Brady at all. The Saints have owned Brady since he came to Tampa Bay in the regular season, but I think the Bucs going to win over the Saints. The Saints, the Falcons kind of really choked that game. They should not have won that game last week, to be honest. Jets at the Browns. I'm hoping my Jets win this game. Do I be a homer and pick the Jets? Although I hope the Jets win this game as a big Jets fan. It's a winnable game. Cleveland down to Deshaun Watson is, I think, a very mid-team. Jacoby Brissett is not a great quarterback. He's a good backup. I don't think he's a very good starter. The receiver room behind Amari Cooper is very weak. Defense is good, but it's not scary. Myles Garrett is fantastic, but outside of that, it's not amazing. It's decent, though. I am going to take Cleveland now. Joe Flacco looked horrible last week. We're the O-line's a little banged up. Looks like we're going to have to start a fourth-round rookie in Max Metro right tackle for the next few weeks, probably until about week 4 or 5. Flacco looked horrible last week, and the Jets were expected to stick with him and not go to Mike White. Zach Wilson looks like he's out till week 4 against Pittsburgh, so I think Cleveland will win that game, unfortunately, for me. Dolphins at the Ravens. I'll take the Ravens. Lamar Jackson played well last week. They should get Dobbins back in some capacity. Miami did play well last week, but I didn't think Tua looked that great. And I think the Ravens will get some pressure on them. I think they'll make some mistakes. I'll take the Ravens to start at 2-0. Colts up the Jaguars. Colts are in Jacksonville. They've had a lot of trouble winning in Jacksonville the last few years. Haven't done it in a few years. You know what? I think that trend continues. I don't like what I saw from Indy last week. They were lucky to even get a tie with the Houston Texans. They just cut their kicker Rodrigo Blankenship. I didn't think Matt Ryan looked all that great. So I think their troubles in Jacksonville continue. I'll take Jacksonville and upset there. The Commanders at the Lions. I'm going to take Detroit. Detroit defense clearly is going to be a problem after they got 38 to Philly last week. Carson Wentz did throw 4 touchdowns last week, played pretty well. But I'm going to take the Detroit Lions. In this one, they got a lot of pieces on offense. Jared Goff didn't even play over last week, and they still put up 35 points. On the Eagles defense, that's pretty good. The Commanders, I didn't think looked great. They barely squeaked by Jacksonville last week, who was not very good. So I'll take Detroit to win that game. Into the 405 games, Seahawks at the Niners. I'll take the Niners in this one. Trey Lance should be much more comfortable now. Playing at home. Obviously it'll be really nice weather in San Francisco. It won't be monsoon like it was last week in Chicago. Seattle, very impressive to beat their old quarterback Russell Wilson on Monday night. By the way, side note, Nathaniel Hackett looks like a bad head coach. That decision to kick a 64-yard field goal instead of going for on 4th and 5. First of all, he should have just called timeout with just under a minute left. Went for on 4th and 5. They probably would have gotten it. And from there, call another timeout, and then at that point, you just run down the clock and you try a field goal to win that game. Don't run all the way down to 20 seconds and then try 64 yards. That's so stupid. And they had so many penalties in the game. Nathaniel Hackett off to a bad start. Seattle's defense did look good. Look better than expected. They'll get Kenneth Walker back, which should help their run game, but they're still not a great football team. I'm still not sold on them. Still not sold on Geno Smith. His line, they wrote me off, but I ain't right back. That's an incredible line from Geno. But Geno, it's one game. If he goes out and throws 3 picks against the Niners, he's going to get grilled. I'm going to take the Niners in this one. Part 5, Falcons at the Rams. Rams got dominated by the Bills, but the Bills are probably the best team in football. I'll take the Rams. Falcons are not very good. They blew another lead last week against New Orleans. Rams, didn't play great last week. They got some injuries on the O-line. But the Falcons' pass rush isn't very good. I think the Rams should get in the win column this week. 425, we got Texans at the Broncos. I think the Broncos bounce back. Broncos have a good squad. Nathaniel Hackett did say that looking back, he does regret the decision, thankfully. So, I think they bounce back and they get a win over the Houston Texans. 425, Cardinals at the Raiders. Both teams didn't look great week 1, especially Arizona. Offensively, could have been better. Their O-line struggled, I thought. And they could have stepped on nosebleed defensively. Chiefs have a great offense, but also still did first game, without Tyreek Hill. And they gave up 44 points. They couldn't stop anything. I'm gonna take the Raiders in this one. I don't love Arizona. I don't really think about Kyler. Obviously, still on DeAndre Hopkins. Their defense struggled last week. Raiders got Carr with Renfro and Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, and all those guys there. Waller. So I'll take the Raiders. 425 Bengals at the Cowboys. By the way, it looks like the Cowboys will not be trading for Jimmy G. Do not expect to bring somebody in for now. It looks like it'll be Cooper Rush, at least for week 2. Bengals are going to be hungry. The Dallas offense looks egregious. Their O-line is depleted with injuries already. With Tyron Smith, their Pro Bowl left tackle, out until December. Jason Peterson, who they just signed like 2 weeks ago. They're going to be having to play him. They're playing a lot of inexperienced guys. Your all-pro guard, Zach Martin. That O-line is very shaky. The defense played well last week, but they're also facing a very good offense in the Bengals, who are not going to turn the ball over 5 times again, even facing a Dallas defense that can do a good job forcing turnovers at times, but their offense looks like a disaster. I'll take the Bengals in this one. Sunday Night Football, Bears, Packers. Best rivalry in football. I'm going to take the Packers. Last year, after putting up a dud in week 1, came back strong in week 2. I think that's the same thing. He kills the Bears every time he plays them. He's kind of right when he says that he owns them. It's at Lambeau. I'm taking Green Bay. We got a doubleheader on Monday night. It's week 2 this year. First at 7:15 on ESPN. Titans at the Bills should be a real good game. Should be a good game. I'll take Buffalo. They look unstoppable week 1. I don't know if anyone's beating them this year. Titans did not look great against the Giants. Should not have lost that game. I'm concerned for them. Their defense took a hit by losing Harold Landry. Of course, they lose A.J. Brown and those guys on offense. I'll take the Bills. And my nightcap Monday night is Vikings at the Eagles. I'm going to take the Eagles. Their offense looked really, really good. Put up 38 against the Lions. Do not have a good defense, but they look very good. Should be a high-scoring game. Remember, the Eagles will give up 35, and they're playing Justin Jefferson and the Minnesota Vikings. I'll take the Eagles to win the highest scoring game. Right, those are my game picks. That's all I got for you guys today. Until next time, so long, and have a great day.